Sweet. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another TouchDesigner Meetup. And this is, if I'm correctly reading the playlist, this is the 35th online meetup we've got. So
My goodness.
it's been,
36.
but there's one video in there that I didn't host. So,
Okay. Okay.
anyways, it's been a while. It's been a while.
35.
So yeah, I'm very excited about this one. First, because it's been also a while that we had the last one. Last one was in December last year. So also Happy New Year, I guess. I'm also it's crazy to me that's already like half of 2026 is over.
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I'm also super
So,
excited because we've got a really interesting topic and some really lovely speakers today. And we both got also Greg and Isabel on,
mhm.
and I think we got a lot
Yeah.
of people joining.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'd like to thank you, Billiam, for your 35 episodes of Music Hackspace. We started in 2021, and they're all recorded. And I'd invite anybody who wants to know a bit about the background of Music Hackspace and Touch Designer. So, Billiam, do you have the link? Maybe we can just put that in our chat, right? Well, it is in the chat already.
I'm gonna put it in there
There.
again.
There's our playlist. I just stuck it in the
Oh,
chat.
it's three.
So,
Put it three times now.
yeah, so everybody can jump there after this is over. And there's some amazing talks over the years, really diverse artistic, creative stuff. So thanks, Billiam, for hosting all of them. And also to JB Tsibo, who runs Music Hackspace, who's sort of the mastermind behind the whole thing, and kind of having the vision of including visual stuff into, or visual more touch designery kind of stuff into the Music Hackspace fold. So thanks to JB too.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can't join us today, but
Mhm.
greetings to JB.
Yeah.
And yeah, as usual, we are gonna do all the presentations one after the other in this room.
Mhm.
And then after that, we're gonna move over to like breakout sessions, basically, where all of you in the audience can ask the presenters questions either in the chat or on the stage. I will explain that again later. But for now, I think we're gonna just start with Melissa. Um, yeah, just briefly, I'm Bileam. I will be your host, and Greg and Isabel and Ruben and Afar are gonna be supporting me as well. And yeah, so Melissa, maybe you can just get started and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen first with the I don't know if I'm doing it. Here it is. Wait, give me a second. Here. Can you can you see it?
You see it?
Yeah, okay. So I'm Elisa Santamaría. I was born in Mexico City. I'm 29 years old. I feel like I'm just like giving the introduction of when you like go to uni and you're like, introduce yourself. But I'm 29 years old. I studied architecture. Um, I'm gonna like this one. This was me in architecture school, like suffering. Like it's like I thought architecture was gonna make me happy, and I was like, architecture is the best. But then I realized like I wanted to study. Since like I was really young, I wanted to study like visual arts because my first concert was the Pitch Mode, and I remember just like watching like what is this? Like, this is incredible. Like all the scenography, the visuals they had, but I didn't like really know like how to get there. So I was like, maybe architecture and like, doing a master in like, I don't know, scenography or theater or something like that. But then like I graduated and I remember I graduated in pandemic and I was like, what now? Like I'm not like I didn't enjoy architecture that much. I was like in a place where I was like, I don't want to be like working at a studio, like just I didn't like really enjoy it. So I was like, what now? And I remember I was in Berlin for like 3 months, taking course at the TU. And I remember there my professor was like, well, why don't you do visuals? Like there's this like thing called touch designer. And I was like, hmm. And I remember that. And I was like, I'm just gonna like go and like start with touch designer. And I saw William's tutorials and I was like, this is interesting. And I just like started like watching William's tutorials and Then I just like started doing my own thing. And like this talk is gonna be about like how um my career has changed in terms of like when you start making art, it's more about like being impressive and like showing something out there, but not as like fully embodying what you're doing. And like, like the creative process and like the process, it's really important now for me. So this is like, this talk is gonna be about that and like how we can shift that, like instead of focusing on the outcome, like we can focus more on like how art makes us like fully present and how we show up every day and things like that. So this is what it's going to be like, surrendering to the process. I'm a big Brian Eno fan, so I'm always reading and like listening to like like different videos like that he speaks about, or like his books. So he calls this like surrendering to the process. And it means like to create as a form of meditation, and like like different ways of approaching your art. um these are like some of the like bands I work with. I'm mostly a VJ and I do content creation. Like I've had projects with Subjana Stevens, Hiatus Coyote, the Free Nationals, Thunder, some others here. And like this is like one of the main like a sentence, like I forgot the word, like, yeah, sentences that like really like stuck with me. So like, stop thinking about art as an object and start thinking about it as a trigger for experiences. So this is like, I'm just gonna give you like bullet points of what helps me throughout like my process. So let the work let you. Um, Sometimes I felt that I would chase outcomes all the times. Like, is this cool? Is this like, like, is this like gonna be like by some other people? Like, what are they gonna think about? So I no longer ask like, what should I create in order to get somewhere. Instead, I ask now, like, what wants to emerge throughout me today? Like maybe I feel like super angry and I want to make a visual. And like for me, the red color represents anger. So it's just like a visual experiment for me. Like now I just go and like, you have to channel. Like I think we're like so disconnected of like um especially nowadays, we're really disconnected from our emotions and everything is so fast and you don't have time to feel your emotions because you have to do something else. And like we don't create that space for us. So that space and like kind of like yeah, like meditation for me is like doing my animations, and like working and like showing up every day, and not to finish something like it says there, but to enter a state of flow, like being present, because most of us are always like in it, like we're always living here and letting all of these things define, like like our thoughts defining our reality. So like making art and making what I do has made me like be more receptive and like to become like more porous, like just letting it be when I'm creating sketches or illustrations or like visuals. Because when you see art as an object, that's something that you need to finish, you just like contract yourself and you just like contract your like experience when you're making art. So you start evaluating it, is it well made? Is it original? Is it valuable? And when you see art as a trigger for experience, like those questions change. So how does this makes me feel? Like what state does it invite me to? What does it awaken in me? When you're like honest and when you tune into that energy, people like can feel that too. When I post like my things on Instagram, like for me it might be a firefly, for the other person might be like another thing, because it's so abstract. So um channeling those emotions, or like like connecting to yourself like really helps in the way you show up in your work and like how people relate to it most of the times. My inspiration is like, you can see it in my work. Like I love water, I love caustics, I love like how light just like reflects on the water, because like there are certain colors that we cannot see until like unless the sun is like actually like reflecting on the water, and it creates like this, like, like these textures, the movement and everything. So I'm really inspired by that. And you can see it in my work here. It's My work is like full of color. I try to represent like nature in an organic way through like TouchDesigner. Um, then you can see like here also, like for example, this one I was like so mad. I remember that day, and it's like it looks like fire. So like for me, like animation and like being present and just like channeling and just like letting that state of flow has helped me also like understand how I want my aesthetic to work. So this is what I like do every day, ritual over product. Like I think it's really important for us to like show up every day for it, like creating as a sacred practice. For me, like this is the like when I create something, it's like the moment where I'm like most present during the day, because I'm a really anxious person and I'm always like, like here and there and blah blah blah. So when I like just like sit down in my computer and I create, for me it's really important to do that every day, because if not I go crazy. So like my approach has changed in terms of like, what if your creative process was a ritual, like not something you have to do, or like not something you just have to be posting on Instagram all the time, but like a daily offering, um without any pressure to finish or like to impress anyone, but for you. And then you just resonate, that happened to me, like my style is like really different now from when I started. Like I have lots of people asking me like, how did you get that aesthetic? But it was like I remembering just like, every day, just like waking up and doing something different, even if it's like it was like super like not what I like, but like showing up every day at the same time, like 9 a.m., just uploading things, just like, like putting out there. And that's how I got my first gig. Um, I remember like I call them these things like my visual mantras. I'm gonna show you in a bit. But like you're showing up every day without like feeling the need of like it there needs to be like a specific outcome, or like I have this idea, so it has to be that. You only like contract, and you limit yourself to like have a playground. Like I see my art and like what I do as a playground. For me, like it's just have fun. That's why I like here's Namjoon Pike, and he always spoke about sacred nonsense, which is like it doesn't have to make sense to like have a purpose. It doesn't have to make sense for you in order for you to like enjoy it. Like you just have to do it, and like you'll like explore different things in yourself that maybe like maybe I'm like super mad and I think I need like I don't know like red or something, and then I just like do a visual that it's more flowy, and that helped me like transition to anger to like maybe some kind of like peacefulness. So like showing up to the unknown, and like it's enough. Just showing up is enough. Sometimes we just like feel that we need to create all the time, and like we need to like do a certain specific I don't know type of art or things, but just like showing up and like having fun, I think that's more than enough. And this is what I call my visual mantras. Like I like repetition, like um I'm into Vedic meditation, which like they give you a mantra and you have to repeat, 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 repeat. And like I just call this ones like my visual mantras, they help me like a type of meditation, and you can see how like that has helped me um having like a defined aesthetic in my work. Here like maybe some of them are not like the same, but you can see like the use of color, textures, um different things. Also, like sometimes like this doesn't have anything to do like with the textures in this one, but like it's just like just have fun, like use it as your playground and to like what resonates to you in that moment, and like being present. Then healing through vibration. So what you pay attention to grows, like everything vibrates, sound, color, like thought, what you put into like the art you're doing, it just like instantly like connects to other people. Like even if you think like this is a hippie thought or whatever, it like helps a lot like putting an intention to what you're doing. um it's like an energetic feel. I feel like sometimes when I like create my work, and I remember that I would focus on like this is like good and this is cool, but it didn't like made me feel that it was like coming from place that I can relate to. So like now, once I realized that, I started like asking like, what does this like, what feeling does this transmit, or like what frequency does it invite? You know, when I post this like, I'm happy today, so I'm just gonna put a happy like I'm gonna create something that channels that happiness that I'm feeling, and maybe a song to it, and like people can relate to that, and they do relate to that. You know, like they like comment like their own point of view, or like, oh, I actually was listening to the song in the morning. You know, like when you create from an honest place, like people can like connect to that. So I'm gonna talk about like some projects that I really love. You know, like subject I did the Subject Stevens a whole like visual album for convocations in the pandemic. This was the first one. This was one of my first projects that I did with like in life, not in life, but like you know, like in TouchDesigner. Like I me showing up every day and uploading like lots of things was like his manager reached out and he was like, hey, we have a project with Subject Stevens. We need 59 visuals. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I was just starting and I was like, fuck, how am I going to do this? But, you know, at the end, it just works. Like, like, this is going to sound so cheesy, but the thing of fake it until you make it, it's actually like, true. You know, if you don't trust yourself, nobody's gonna like trust you. So I just have to lie to myself and be like, you got this. Although in the back of my mind I was like, fuck. But you know, at the end it worked, and it helped me like have like new patches and like new ways of creating like those things, you know, like the whole, for example, like movement or like different things. So um each volume was like a different emotion from what he like created, so I had to channel that emotion into a visual, so that was like really really cool too. You have the this is my favorite, no wait, this is my favorite one. You know, it's like fireflies and like collective healing and resonance. Like, you know, like for me it's really really fun to do the live shows, because it's an act of like self-expression, you know, but it doesn't come along with like when you're doing shows. um like everything vibrates, you know, you're just connecting to the audience with your visuals, and like, you know, syncing that to like whoever is playing, and you know people can feel those things, you know. But because it carries like something real in what you're doing, if you like connect to it, you know, like just show up. Like that's my main thing, just like showing up, you know, like something honest, something like that vibrates. Like every time you guys create it, it you create something there in the energetic field, you know, like most of us are not aware, but like just putting your attention into like things, it just like creates like this energy field that most people can like relate to, or just like connect to it, you know. So creation becomes community. Like when we stop performing or like searching for like validation, and we start like resonating to each other, it helps a lot. So like Brian Eno called these like the sinus, the collective intelligence that emerge when people share space, intention, and possibility, you know, like it's an open doorway, and you start connecting to everything, you know, like just like embodiment, like having an intention, like what do I want to create today? Well, maybe a still, well, maybe this, how am I feeling today? You know, like connecting to like your emotions helps a lot in terms of like creating art. This is me with Brian Eno. I met him. He's really like cool. And then some other shows. I don't think I have more time, right, William?
5 more minutes.
Good. Okay. So this was my favorite show. I did this show with Andy Stott, and it was amazing. I was a fan for like since I was like 15. and I we met in San Francisco, and I was like, Andy, like I have to do a show with you. You know, just like I would suggest you guys, if you want to work with someone like an artist, just reach out. Like you never know like what is gonna happen. You know, like just reach out. Don't be scared if they're gonna think your art is like good or not. Just like I remember reaching out to like with Andy. I was like, I want to make a show with you, and I just like send him my work, and it worked, and we did a show at Mutech, and these are some pictures of it. But don't be scared, and also remember, comparison is the thief of joy. Like it's fine to like like you can like someone's like work or like someone's like yeah, like you can be a fan of like someone else, but just when you compare yourself, like you devaluate like your past experiences and who you are. And I think like you need them in order to create what like helps you, like when we compare ourselves, even I compare to like like lots of artists, and I'm like, but then I'm like, what I'm comparing to, like maybe I just like, I don't know how to explain it, but just don't, like when you compare yourself, you're just like doing all of the experiences you've had in the past, like they don't matter, and you kind of like neglect who you are, instead of like using that in order to just like create something new. This is another like show that I love. It was with the Free Nationals and Hayes Coyote. I'm just gonna be I'm just gonna go super fast because I don't have enough time, but some of my favorite shows were like this ones, and just like showing you guys like Calibre, and take notes, like I just like did this, so like maybe you guys can like start your day with like when you're gonna like start an artwork or something, just like like this questions help me a lot to start a project, and there you go, guys. Like you can text me on Instagram and be like, can you send me those questions, and I will. But that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. There was a lot in there. There was really a lot in there, and yeah, I'm so happy you started with my stuff.
Yes, you see, I like there was a meme I remember I saw that it was like Billiam and the world. Do you remember that one? That's really
The old school
Billiam.
memes.
Like he was holding the world like this, and he was like touch designer. Yeah, everyone knows that meme. But yeah, like I started watching Billiam's like touch designers like tutorials, and I was like, this is amazing. And I reached out, and he was like, yeah, I'm glad, like continue. And he would tell me like, there's a new one, there's a new one. And he's like the touch designer guru. And I'm sure
Thank you,
lots
thank you,
like
thank you.
lots of people have like started like just like with your tutorials. I'm so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean it's insane what seeing like how far you've gotten with all these clients. I mean, a lot of these musicians I know and I love also. I mean, Brian Eno is like the OG generative music, generative art guy. It's crazy that you've met him
Yeah.
and you've worked with him. It's insane actually. Very, very happy to see that. Because yeah, we've been in contact for
Yes.
a while, and I really love your aesthetics of your work, and I really love that you kind of do this as a ritual. And yeah, I've also seen that over the years you've been really like consistent with your work, which I always admire because I totally have not
Mm.
in the last years. So that's really really cool. Um, and I love kind of what you
Yeah.
said about like that you don't want like sometimes it's not about you like about what you want to do, but kind of the art doing it through you.
Yeah.
Sort of, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's important too. I know it was kind of like a hippie talk, but it's just like important, Like I know it was not that technical because I'm really bad.
That's
I would
fine.
like guys, I would like do workshops, but I'm just like really bad at explaining things. Like you can even like see, like I just speak so fast. So yeah. But this
It's all
talk,
right.
like if you want like yeah, um to reach out, if like the people who's like here in the public want to reach out and ask questions, like you can.
Yeah, and I think it's good advice just to approach the people that you admire and want to work with, because something may happen, and you might have something that adds to the chemistry of their work. So
Yeah.
nothing wrong in trying.
Absolutely. Like also just tagging them, I've also noticed that, and often
Yeah,
musicians are so happy seeing their music being used,
yeah,
and then they're like, I also recently reached out to somebody I just
Yeah.
discovered, and he was like, yeah, let's do something next year, and yeah, like if you already have, especially if you already have a bit of a portfolio on your Instagram or whatever, they're very happy to
yeah,
For
connect
sure.
usually.
Yeah.
So I think that's great advice.
Yeah,
yeah. They
I
love
see
it.
that so much on the through the TouchDesigner Instagram community, just how many TouchDesigner artists end up doing work for, other amazing um, composers and DJs. And so definitely go for it.
Or just like in their DMs, slides into their DMs, just be like, hey, I want to, like, I remember, like, I'm gonna tell this, but like, I remember I reached out to Flying Lotus and I was so rude. Like, in my mind, he had like so many like followers that I was like, of course, he's not gonna like reply back, but I was just like, I want to make visuals for you. And he said, okay, hit me up at this email. And that's how I started working with his label. Just reach out. Like they know it's already there, Just like send them messages and just be like, hey, I have this visual, look at my work, and that's it, like don't be scared. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, like being scared or like having fear is not gonna lead you to anywhere.
Same thing with dating advice, right? Worst thing they can say is no. So.
Exactly. Exactly. Just reach out and that's it.
All right.
Amen. Best advice ever, Bileam.
Oh, it was
Summary.
hers. It was hers. All right. I think we can continue. Let's get to Pauric now.
No worries. Yeah, so my talk today will be on composition beyond sound and basically using video as a way to extend music composition. So I will start with a little bit of an introduction about myself and what I do and show some videos of the type of work that I do. I'll talk a little bit then about composing with video. So basically the kind of core of what it is that I work on in my practice. And then looking a little bit at the end at the research that I've kind of carried out over the years. So first of all, a little bit about me. My name's Pauric. I'm an artist and composer based in Dublin, in Ireland. I come from a background of music and sound design. And then when I was studying, I then kind of got introduced to interactive media through Flash initially. So it was quite a few years ago. And then from there kind of rolled on through a couple of different technologies before kind of ending up in the TouchDesigner world. And that's so that's the kind of video side is I got introduced through interactive media. And kind of at the core of what it is that I do is I build or put together like audiovisual instruments. And these are usually a mixture of like hardware synthesizers, software systems. So here's a couple of kind of images, like a lot of synthesizers, basically a lot of sometimes building like custom visual patches in TouchDesigner, sometimes working with like Max MSP or Ableton and things like that. And a lot of this work is just really like researching or experimenting or building prototypes with these audiovisual instruments. And if there's something there that I like or I think is interesting, I try to compose work with that setup. And generally the work that I compose or create with that falls into two categories. The first one being performance, which is probably the one that's taken up the most focus over the last couple of years. So I'll see, I have a video here and I'll play that just to give an idea of the performances. This was from Amsterdam Dance Event in 2024. yeah, so that's a little bit of the type of stuff that I do from a performance perspective. But also sometimes when putting together these audiovisual instruments, the work ends up as installation. So I've actually been working in installation a lot longer than performance. But I'll show a recent installation. So this was a collaboration with a friend and artist from Amsterdam called Sebastian Smink. And this was at MACA, the Moving Arts Centre in Amsterdam, also in 2024. Yeah, I'll play a video just to give an idea. This was for laser video projection and sound. Yeah, so that's pretty much the kind of core of the work that I do. So I'll just talk a little bit about this idea of composition with video, and a little bit about how I got into this space, or I guess the ideas that I engage with. When people ask me what it is that I do within my work, I usually try and summarize it by saying that I use video as a way to extend music composition. So video is not something that music composers normally work with, but I've come to realize over the years that video is quite a useful tool that can be used within composition, within music composition, and it's all kind of based around this one idea, that image shapes listening. So when we present video alongside sound, we actually hear the sound differently than if it's not presented alongside it. And in fact, image or video has the ability to completely override what it is that we're hearing, which is pretty crazy idea, I guess. And it was something that was first introduced to me or shown to me when I was studying music in college. And we had a module called psychoacoustics. I'm sure a lot of people are probably familiar with psychoacoustics, but it's the study of the perception of sound. And there's kind of a couple of different areas. There's the physical properties of sound, like how it exists in space. The physiological properties of sound, like the body and how the mechanical process that happens in our ears or in the cochlea. And then the psychological or the cognitive aspect of sound as well. So how our brains actually interpret sound and music and what that does. So in that kind of cognitive understanding, there was one of the studies that they showed us, or one of the effects that they showed us, was the McGurk effect. And I remember at the time when they showed it, there's like this ridiculous video of a guy kind of on a beach, like showing an example of it. I have the video here, so I'll play it in a second. But it was the first time that I kind of seen this idea of video or image completely overriding what it is that we're hearing. So I'll play the video to give you an idea.
Have a look at this. What do you hear? But look what happens when we change the picture. yet, the sound hasn't changed. In every clip, you are only ever hearing bar with a B. It's an illusion known as the McGurk effect. Take another look.
Yeah, so basically it just goes back through and kind of looks at it again. So they showed us this video, and obviously there's not a lot in that video that inspired me to go out and make electronic music and put video to it. But it was kind of interesting from the perspective of like what happens inside our brain and I guess the kind of cognitive capabilities that's possible with video and sound, and how video can kind of override what it is that you're hearing. So I was curious if there was any kind of art forms that was like making use of this. So I started researching a little bit into like these image sound relationships, and the first one that came up was cinema. And there's quite a few examples of where to use it, you know, both with music, but also in Foley sound, so the kind of sound design of for cinema. And so I was reading a little bit into that, and a lot of Foley sound was kind of centered around this kind of basic example of, you know, you use one sound for another thing, or like you use cornstarch for the sound of like people walking in snow and things like that. And like that kind of aspect of it wasn't, or I didn't really find it that interesting, because all it was really doing was reinforcing what was on the screen already. So it wasn't exactly like pushing or pulling it in a different direction, or trying to help us think a little bit differently about what's on the screen. So I dug a little bit deeper again, and I came across this book by Edgar Schubhan called Audiovisual Sound on Screen. So Edgar Schubhan is a French composer and sound designer, I guess. He was part of the GRM in Paris, so he was one of the musique concrète people with like Chauffeur and Henri and all those back in the day. So he was quite knowledgeable on I guess that idea of image and sound and the relationships between them. And this book he wrote is it's a really great book. It's very, very easy to read. And he's basically looking at cinema and all the different things, all the different ways that sound can be used in cinema. He does touch a little bit on like the example I give, like with the cornstarch and the footsteps, but I think most importantly, he kind of moves away from that, and he starts to think about things from a much more philosophical perspective, and in terms of like compositional techniques that can be used to kind of push ideas, or to change what it is that the user is experiencing through sound. So really like kind of pushing the capabilities of sound as a narrative tool. And he talks about things like audiovisual counterpoint, so where what's happening on screen and what's happening in the soundtrack like have two different trajectories, and how that impacts the story and how we feel about it. Grouping is another example of something he talks about, where you can use sound to group visual elements on screen, both temporally and spatially as well. And then using silence and different things like that. So he was kind of, these are just a couple of examples of some of the stuff that he talks about. But it was just this was kind of the more meaty stuff that I was kind of looking for. Like the more interesting ways of presenting image and sound together, and trying to tell something different with that. So the idea that was kind of floating around in my head after this was like, if images can alter how we hear, what possibilities does this open up for music composition? So this was like back in 2012, I think. So it was quite a good few years ago, and I didn't have an audiovisual arts practice at that stage. I wasn't working with audiovisual. I was just doing like music composition. But very shortly afterwards, in another module, we were introduced to generative art through processing, actually, initially. So one of our lecturers introduced us to processing, to do DSP, actually, programming in it. But in order for us to learn processing, introduced us to like generative art, and the works of like Vera Molnar and Cassie Rees and all these other artists. 2012 was a very different kind of landscape for generative art. It was a very different time than it is now. But I got pretty interested in it. I had a background in programming, or coming from Flash, I was able to pick it up relatively quickly. So I became kind of obsessed with that for a couple of years and started developing lots of generative artworks. This was one of those called Synapse Relapse, which was this was a video. It's not this is just a still from it, and this was at the this was presented at the Gertrude Street Projection Festival in 2017. But what I kind of understood from working with generative art was that it was really like visual art that was defined by a set of numbers. So you had a set of numbers, and that's what kind of defined what the output was of your visual system. At the same time as that, I was working with music and DSP programming. So, writing compositions in Max MSP and C Sound and different things like that. And particularly Max MSP was one that I was quite interested in working with. I liked working with it. And then when I was thinking about it, it was basically music composition as a set of numbers. So it was this kind of case of having like synthesizers, music performance, Max MSP, those kind of systems that would output a set of numbers, and generative visuals that was kind of taking in a set of numbers that would define it. So over the kind of years that passed after that, I experimented with using the data from the synthesizers and music performance in generative visuals. And this was kind of the first time I was merging the two together and played around with it for a couple of years. Basically just making things flash on and off when there was like, a sound plays and some visual flashes up on the screen. But that was, after a couple of years of working with that, I started to kind of get it to a point where everything was starting to come back kind of full circle. So I was coming back to these ideas of the McGurk effect, of how the image that you're being presented with could control the experience of the sound and could kind of like create something different or group it differently or give you a different experience of the sound. And actually the first time I kind of hit on this in a way that I thought it was somewhat successful, I actually have a video of it. I can play it now. So this was around 2018, and it was with modular synth and the generative visuals and Max MSP. Okay, so I remember just having finished that, and it's kind of interesting to watch back over it because it's kind of similar-ish to a lot of the stuff that I still do now. But I do remember that was kind of the moment where I was like, okay, this kind of makes sense for me, and I knew the things that I was working with at that point, which was a really nice place to be. I had a lot of questions still, both technical and compositional. So there's still a lot of research that I wanted to carry out to do things, but at least I knew that there was something there to play around with, and then I could kind of go off and research into each of those areas. So the first kind of, there was kind of the two main areas I was researching at that point were the first one was kind of the more compositional approach. So I started looking into audiovisual art history, which in 2018, even now, I mean, it's a relatively young art form. So at least in the context of what we're talking about now and what's kind of presented now. So there wasn't really a lot to dip into. Funny enough, that most of the stuff that I came across then was pointing to TouchDesigner. I still wasn't using it at this point. But a lot of the stuff that I was finding was was working with it. But beyond that, it didn't really have like an art history, like say music composition or like painting or anything like that that has like, you know, hundreds of years or whatever of history. So I knew that I needed to look somewhere else to kind of find some of the things that I was trying to research. And one of the ones that, or one of the questions that kind of cropped up again and again was, how do we communicate visually? Because I knew that if I could understand how things communicated visually, then I would be able to hopefully use the image as a way to kind of communicate. And that's kind of what led me to visual communication or graphic design. And I already had some friends working in it, so I was somewhat familiar with that discipline. But it was really nice to find like an area that was like hyper focused on communicating ideas efficiently, and that's really, I guess, the goal of graphic design. So, and it's also got a long history, so I just kind of dug in and I started to understand different techniques that's used within graphic design, not so much to try and get an overall idea of everything about graphic design, but just kind of like pulling out the little bits that I found interesting, like grids or hierarchy. Typography has always been really interesting to me. So just kind of like pulling out those bits. And I think there's probably a lot about my work that still has a lot of those elements within it. But yeah, it's been such a like kind of fruitful area to look into for that. And some of the things that I was asking then was like, what are the overlaps with music composition in terms of like phrasing and rhythm and repetition and themes and all these things, like the techniques that I was using to compose music with, how could I use graphic design or visual communication as a way to kind of access those same techniques. And that's kind of where I got to at this point. So that was kind of the compositional research, and of course there was the technical research, because I just kind of stumbled my way through just using bits and pieces up to that point, whatever would work and whatever would make things flash on the screen. But I knew that I had to go from like a 60-second clip up to try and produce like a 60-minute performance, which I knew was going to be a big task, and I knew it was not really going to be possible with the tools that I had. So I was working with Max and processing at the time, and that's when I came to working with TouchDesigner. The problem before about why I moved away from those softwares was it was too much programming, really, and I was finding that like I'm going from one programming environment into another, and my brain was switching, and then you'd forget where you were, and then everything just took so long, and it just became a really drawn out process. So I dropped Max MSP altogether, and I started working with more with just hardware synthesizers and things like that. And yeah, sure. And then on the video side, I started working with TouchDesigner, which was just like a million times quicker to work with. It was so much faster. Everything could be created with such ease, and also with a kind of playfulness that I hadn't really experienced with other platforms before that. So that was kind of the thing, and I knew that once I picked it up that I would end up doing it with that. So I think the first show that I did then was like 2021. So that was about 3 years after that video. So it took a little while before I could kind of formulate everything together. And obviously just understanding what platforms to use is only one part of the technical research. So I also needed to think about what it is that I wanted to do with that, or how I wanted to communicate with the different devices. And really one of the things that I was mostly drawn to was sequencers. So I love sequencers. I've loved them for a long time. They've got like, every sequencer is different, and they've got so much character, and they're so unique. Like one of the things that I noticed as well was the type of music that I was making was very much based around sequencers, and I guess like changing patterns and establishing a pattern and then changing from that, and that was kind of the style of music that I was most interested in making or producing. I guess kind of similar to artists like Mark Fell, or even like further back looking at like Terry Riley or Steve Reich and artists like that who worked with those kind of shifting patterns and arrangements. So all that was kind of encapsulated in the sequencers that I was already interacting with. So I just started building TouchDesigner networks around the sequencers. So this sequencer here, the Meleco Variegate 8 Plus, was actually the first one that I did. So I built a TouchDesigner patch that basically took all of the information from that, or I could have to replug stuff, but I could get all the information from it. And that was the first one that I did. And then over the years, then kind of expanded that out to build not necessarily different networks. I actually just have one big, massive TouchDesigner network, and started plugging in all these other sequencers. So building one, I think the second one was around the analog rhythm, and then there was Ableton, and then I've been working with the Oxy sequencer recently as well. And that's what I found is kind of the best way to kind of interact with the music and the style of performance that I've been doing. And that's kind of basically what takes me up to where the way I'm working now, and how I'm working with each of these elements. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for the talk. So yeah, thank you very much for listening. I'll end up here.
Wow, thank you so much.
Cool. Yeah, no worries.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thanks for having me
Yeah,
on.
really great.
It's lovely to get an insight into your work, because you're definitely quite the reference, and I get a lot of people reaching out to me also asking about like how you're doing your stuff. It's really interesting to see that you're working with sequencers so much. I didn't actually know that. And I love, like, I think
Yeah.
one of the things that I really, really love about your work, and I think that people really love about it, is the tightness of how the audio and the visuals are linked. It's very, very satisfying to watch, also in the examples that you showed, but also on like Instagram, whatever I see. It's always like so direct and concrete and tight. That's really nice to see. I think it's very unique.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks, Bileam.
And also, I find also there's a bit of dissonance sometimes between your visual and your music, and now I 100% understand why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind
Yeah,
of, it's hard to
yeah,
communicate that all the time, but it's good that it's nice that you pick it up.
yeah. And I think that tension is what makes it so exciting, because sometimes I'm looking at your work going, how did he do that? But you know, like I feel something quite physical from it, you know. So
Yeah, I think it's
definitely.
kind of nice to play with those elements. Like my only background is in music composition, and that's the things that we were told or taught how to compose with, was like to build tension and to release it and to move in that way. So it's just trying to like work with the video in the same way, I guess.
Yeah, understand a bit more now about how, like your ADE Amsterdam event that you did with that laser plus video plus music. I want to watch it a lot more now, because I think there's a lot of kind of connection stuff between the two that I was missing before.
Yeah, nice.
Patterns
Yeah,
and stuff.
it's actually, that's just an excerpt from it, so it's I think
Mm.
it's a 10-minute piece in total. So
Yeah,
hopefully
really,
I'll
really
get to
nice. Yeah,
present it again. Yeah.
you seem to get a lot out of a couple of polygons.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the goal. Strip it down.
Sweet, thank you. So, to the audience, if you have questions, I'm sure you do, and if you want to see some more of a deep dive into his work, then you can join his like breakout room later on. For now, we're gonna move on to SARV, or Edgar, and yeah, very excited about that talk as well.
Hello. So yeah, my name is Edgar from France, also known as SARV as an artist. So yeah, speaking a bit about my life before discovering this software, I studied engineering in electronics and low-level programming. So low level is basically programming close to the hardware. I was not bad, but I wasn't really good neither, because I wasn't really having fun in what I was doing and studying. Since I'm young, I always touch to a lot of different stuff. I'm extremely curious and I'm really close to art, nature, music, especially. So when I had some free time during working as an engineer, I only worked during 8 months, and after I quit. During my free time, I was trying to make some music also to mix for some parties with friends and stuff. And I was like, no, there is no screen for now. I was like, I would like to have some visuals on my music. So I first check what's happening concerning the softwares. I try Resolume. I stop it 3 days after because it's not what I was looking for. And then I discovered TouchDesigner. I opened it and I didn't close it since this time. So yeah, I'm gonna share my screen now. Maybe show you a little, some of my works. Tell me if you hear the audio correctly. This is my first experiments with audio reactivity. I specifically arrived on TouchDesigner for audio reactivity. By the way, thank you, Bileam, again for your tutorials, because thanks to you, you made the way a bit clearer for me. So thank you for this. I started with stuff like this. Sorry. What do you say? No. I have another music coming from I don't know where. Anyway. It wasn't me. Okay. So yeah, I only work with raw sounds. I don't, for now, create my music. I don't inject any MIDI data and stuff. I just take a raw sound from a device, a sound card, an instrument, a microphone, anything, and I built an analysis around this. These kind of things also. Well, no. Do you know where it's coming from?
Discord theme song.
And yeah, a lot of audio activity after I studied more. Really, particularly the geometries, because I knew nothing about 3D and stuff, so I had to learn everything. I knew nothing about pixels, so I learned everything about geometries, what is a point, what is a primitive, what is a triangle, a normal, etc. And now I'm working way more on the rendering system. So this is some of my last work, and the last is this one. I'm working, rendering, understanding the materials, how it works with the light, cameras, buffers, AOVs, these kind of things. Okay, it's when I mute myself. Okay. The thing is, if I don't mute myself, my microphone is a bit too sensible, and then the audio gets back. Again, it's okay. So when I started TouchDesigner, then I first tried the audio analysis present in the palette, and I wasn't really happy with it. I'm sorry, derivative. So I focused a bit more on how the chop work, these kind of things. And I packed everything in March 2025 under ARE for Audio Reactive Engine. So it's not here for promoting, it's just that 90% of my knowledge about Audio Reactive and TouchDesigner is inside of this. So yeah, I don't have diapositive, I don't have a PowerPoint ready. I'm just gonna live show my different techniques, how I do to manage visual parameters thanks to the sound in real time and in a VJing context. So with the minimum latency and having something really lightweight and still precise. So on this ARE I created, you can obviously select some input driver or file, device or file, also the output. And there is the drum section. This is the thing I use the most. I will put some music so we can see. I hope the sound gonna be good in terms of volume. Okay. So we have here, I'm gonna reduce a bit the volume for me. So I created an algorithm to calculate the low, the mid, and the high in the drums. So we can say in a vulgar way that low are the kicks, mid the snares, and high are the hats, hi-hats, etc. So in order to do this, I first use a audio spectrum chop in TouchDesigner that's gonna give me FFT. For people who don't know what's FFT and a spectrum, here I put the main chops I used inside of the ARE, and if you want to develop your own audio analysis tool, I mean, there is others, but I use this in my case. So FFT is this. On the horizontal axis, you have the frequencies, with on the left the lowest, so let's say the bass, and on the right you have the highest frequencies. Here we have pure logarithmic visualization, but I'm not gonna dig in this aspect. And on the vertical axis, we have the amplitude. So I first use this with a filter chop to isolate only what's under. Here we can see 70 Hertz. All these parameters can be a bit scary, let's say, but basically this group, and this group are exactly the same operations, but just for different bands of frequencies. So I first keep only the bass part where there is the kick and the bass coexisting and a bit of low medium frequencies, let's say. And after there is an analyze chop that you find here, and I use RMS power to get, let's say, the main dynamic of the signal. So I usually put this at 0, but you could tell me, okay, by just putting a trigger here, you have enough data to have an output and something going from 0 to 1, and that can manage visuals parameter. The thing is, some sounds are more complex than just the one we are hearing. That is really clear, it's super clear. I wrote a whole documentation about this tool I created, and on this example here, we can see that sometimes we can have this behavior. So you can have a kick appearing with the transient, and then just after have the bass. The thing is that the bass can be higher in intensity compared to the peak. So if you put a trigger, you're just gonna get the bass, and it's gonna be delayed compared to the kick transient. So in order to filter this, I use a slope. I'm gonna dive inside of the ARE quickly and inside of the drums. And I use a slope chop slope is basically, here we are taking a sample and the previous sample, and it's giving you the math derivative. I mean, how fast, how big are the samples variating, let's say. So because the drums, compared to most of the bass, let's say, the drums have this specific behavior where it hits fast. I mean, there is a lot of energy, but in a short amount of time, and that's why I can detect it and avoid this kind of behaviors here. So for most of the case, you could just stop here, exactly the way I'm doing here. But after, when you have like some more complex music, this is an interesting approach. It is designed for VJing also, because during VJ set, you don't want to be always trying to change the trigger value on bass, mid and high drums and other things maybe. So I created an automatic trigger that just analyzes a trail chop here on 4 seconds. And then there is this automatic factor. So it takes the maximum amplitude of the peaks and it multiplies it by 0.7 and then constantly adapt. Because when you have a DJ, when you have a musician, or even the music themselves are not mixed the same way, so you can have like really different dynamics in the mix. And you have to change some things time to time, but honestly, just this is clearly enough for the VJ sets I do that are mostly electronics music for now, bass music, techno. So yeah, and the behavior is the same for the mid, so let's say snare and hi-hats row here. After this we have the global dynamic, which is like a bit the same analysis but on the whole spectrum. It's not focused on all the low or the mid or the high, it's on the whole spectrum. And there is this natural dynamic here that is basically just output of RMS power of the mono signal. Can be funny to put this on you put a light comp and you put this on a dimmer, so the light of the scene varies on the intensity of the music. Quite interesting. And there is this, I love this one, it's called reduced FFT. So we saw the FFT before here, describing the representation of the frequencies and the amplitude. So here I shuffled, because it's the shuffle top who allowed me to do this. So we can see the low frequencies on top and the highest frequencies on the bottom. And I can select how much I want dynamically. We can see that it's changing the shape behind. I'm gonna show you later. But there is a possibility of adding a trigger on this set of channels. So every channel that is above this 0.05 trigger value, we're gonna create a 1. I used it exactly in this video that I show you. I have in my VJ set, after the render, in a post-process container, a lot of different effects, lines in the background, some maybe data moshing, flash, shakings and stuff. So there is 15, and each of them is triggered by this set of channels. So according to what group of frequencies are playing, different effects are triggered. You can also do them on geometry, but I only did this on the post-process, you see. And all of these are reacting at the right moment on the frequencies. And if you don't like how it looks, it's a bit complex. You cannot in live say, okay, I have 15 things, I want this effect to go on this channel to go on this effect, this channel to go on this effect, and then the music change is completely different. So I like to randomize everything, so it fits to the mood of the music if I feel it, and if I don't like it, I just change the. Come on. I think I have a big lag. Yeah, okay, weird. So yeah, I use this mostly to trigger some visual effects randomly according to group of frequencies. And here we have something close to what's in the audio analysis palette. So bass, mid, high, you choose your frequency groups, let's say. You can put Gaussian filters to avoid like these fast oscillations. You can boost the highest frequencies because they are often lower in terms of energy. And you can also normalize temporally. So it analyzes on 4 seconds what are the different dynamics and then normalize them. It's not perfect. It's not really representing physically and in terms of values what's happening in the whole song, but it's working on these 4 seconds. And yeah, once I have all of this, this is an easy way to transfer all this data to visual parameters. So I start just by getting the output of the ARE, and then simple lag after math to rearrange the values, and then I put everything into different visual parameters. The lag is important because it allows you to adapt to different kind of, and let's say, dynamic of music. If you have a slow rhythmic jazz, maybe you want your lag to be smoother. I mean, yeah, really smoother. But in this kind of music, you maybe want it to be more punchy. And yeah, that's it. One of the things that allow to adapt to the dynamic. Usually in a VJ set, I have like a main parameter controlling kind of all the lags or the filter chops. Some of them have some variations, but this is the whole idea. There is something here, there is a lot of parameters concerning, by the way, this latency. Mostly when you do FFT analysis and you have some processing happening on the audio analysis, you can see that you have this FFT size. So maybe I will say not correct things, maybe I will be a bit next to the reality, but it seems that when you increase, you have more details and informations in your signal, but also you lose some reactivity. There is a latency created. If you compare this value to 2048, it's way faster. So this is an important parameter to understand when you are using this kind of tools to pilot your visuals. Also, there is the buffer length. When you do vidging, reduce it the maximum possible. Even if when you hear the sound, it's disgusting, it's not the goal. The algorithm has to understand it, so put it down until you have like, you can lose to have a clean data. It's very important. So there is a few parameters like this to adapt to vidging. Everything is described here in optimization. There is another block about latency and stuff. But yeah, I don't know how much time I still have, but okay. I'm gonna increase the size of this, reduce FFT to 400. And I'm gonna stop the randomize so we can see clearly the different patterns here. So we can see the lowest frequencies there, the highest here. I smoothed a little, not conventionally, with filter pop depositions to have something more smooth, but you can. But yeah. Yeah, and we have here the low, mid, and high signals. I don't use them a lot in my stuff. I mostly use this and this. So the kick, snare in the middle, and hats and hi-hats on the right. I'm gonna display it on the background. Yeah, you can see them here and here appearing again. And these are not triggered directly by these. There is also these lags. Oh no, it's not here, it's here. There is a lag, 0.005, 0.05. Managing how smooth it is. Important. And yeah, and as well this little simple point cloud in background that use exactly the same pattern I show here. So there is one with the speed that I use mostly for to translate things. So here there is noise translations. on the rotation. So on each hi-hat, the cube is rotating faster on itself. The kick is making the wall shape moving, so again with the speed for the noise translation. And the mediums are playing on the scale. It's not there here, it looks more like a clap, but yeah. Yeah, I think I forget a lot of things because I was a bit stressed, and it's always the same. I forget to say some things, but here is the overall idea of my approach. I only have one tutorial about this, but I explain all of this a bit more clearer, let's say. And yeah, that's it. Maybe I will, if some of you are interested, I will give this project. It can be funny because it's only about audio activity. Not everything is mapped. The whole thing is not described and used, but it's a good starting point, I think. So yeah, I think I was a bit too fast, but thank you for listening.
No worries. Thank you so much. It's so nice also to see the different presentation styles, and I'm happy we got a proper tutorial on audio reactivity.
Mhm.
And it's really funny because I've spent so much time with exactly this topic, and I also arrived at the slope eventually. So
Yeah.
that is really, really perfect for especially anything that is beat oriented, right? That's not for ambient stuff, but it's it's really nice. The lag includes like a clamp slope. I've also used that in combination with the slope. That can also get really interesting results. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I've first of all, I've really admired your work since you appeared in TouchDesigner World. So it's great to hear you talk at one of these meetups. But like I really like how you've taken kind of the audio analysis that's in the palette and found what the defects are in that and added to it, made things more granular, more controllable. You know, your auto modes and your auto mode to and your adaptations of things and stuff like that, and made it more visual too because your use of the chop viewers in your grid in your viewer versus just one number coming out of a component teaches you a lot more about how your transients and how they rise and fall, and also it just gives you you've got a lot more visual detail in that, and I kind of like also your use of the 3D viewer just to put everything in the 3D world with your examples is kind of cool too. So, anyways, your works has been really inspiring in the past. So don't feel bad about ripping apart our existing tools. That's what it's there for, to be
I've been
ripped
doing the
apart.
same.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Rip and roll.
I also love SARV, and that's also similar to me that you said you had no idea about 3D before you started Touch.
Yeah,
And I also had absolutely no idea about 3D before Touch. And it's so interesting that you also use Touch to learn about this. Like I didn't even know what vertices were or anything. Also because English isn't my native language, I think that's also part of it. But yeah, same for you.
Yeah, and to kind of have so quickly developed into one of the main sort of contributors of really interesting assets and tools to the community. I mean, I see your contributions and Yuval and a bunch of other people's stuff just bouncing around, influencing work, and people sort of jump off from there. And it's fascinating to see how these things kind of progress and roll along.
It's because of you. I'm obsessed with what you created, huh? Really. No, really. Yeah. I mean, I'm completely in love with what's happening with this.
Same.
Yeah,
Amazing.
a bit too much, huh? My health was bad at the moment because of this software too. I stopped eating, sleeping, seeing my friends.
Oh, yeah. You have to balance. You have to. You definitely have to sort of take some hours for your physical health and social health, and
it's better now.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's why I'm afraid not to start making music myself, because I think I would also lose my friends, stop eating, lose my job, be in bad health and stuff like that. So you really got to balance yourself out.
Completely.
This is definitely a deep
Yeah.
rabbit hole to get stuck in. I feel that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we could have an episode strictly on that, sort of like a help group, perhaps.
TouchDesigner help group.
Touch
Yeah.
designer.
Help
Yeah.
help me turn my computer. Help me turn TouchDesigner off.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So
Doesn't Dan Molnar has like his toolbar that reminds you to drink water every so often, I think.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
it's kind of hitting on that.
Yeah. So where is this component found? I didn't catch exactly. Is it on your Patreon or GitHub or
It's
where?
on my Patreon, yeah. But if you
Yeah.
want, we can integrate it in the palette. I offer it to TouchDesigner, no problem.
Okay. I'm going to take you up on that. It's such a great tool. Yeah, I have a couple of. I have 3 variations of the audio analysis that are in different tools of mine, and the one in the palette is just one of them. The other ones are a bit more experimental, and yeah, it really depends on kind of the music that you're listening to, the style of music you listen to, and your sensibility about what's important in the music that you want to kind of pull out as
Absolutely.
signals that you turn into visual. So it really is dependent upon your style, musical taste.
Yeah, I try to work on. This audio reactive engine is mostly designed for electronic music with some drums and dynamics, and because it's what I work with when I go VJing and stuff. I don't listen only to this, but yeah. And a lot of people ask me, what are the solutions for ambient music? It's really complicated. It's also, it's a whole subject. It's super complicated.
Yeah, because there's a lot of a spectral frequency rises and falls that are kind of more slow for one, and there's much less rhythm in it.
But I also think not everything has to be reactive, right? I mean, with ambient music, it also just works if something is just kind of running along. It doesn't have to always react. So
That's true. That's true. Yeah, because just even having just speed control on your visual has a lot of effect on the emotional effect in ambient. So you're right. It doesn't have to be specifically following beats, but just kind of like a flow thing that kind of works with the sound.
cool. Yeah, thank you so much to all you 3 presenters. I'm gonna stop the recording here.